Greetings, uninformed Americans. We went after the alphabets and lost computers doing so. Echelon is done doing global surveillance for corporate entities. As the Five Eyes since the 40s. From which person of interest was based.
Every phone call, surveillance camera is monitored. Every government agency wants it.
What's Echelon? It's NSA Central Computer.
The Special Collection Service, or F6, breaks in and physically bugs all embassies with amazing equipment, illegally with complete diplomatic immunity. F6 started in the 70s with spy pigeons. Meanwhile, NSA hacking has hit largely US populations, gaining root access with worms like Blue Doom for rapid virus dispersion, ransomware like WannaCrypt for economic espionage programs like GoldenEye. Windows is a specific target because they were intentionally made with backdoors. The NSA breaks not only into enemy banks but allies, and they target whistleblowers.
My guest today is William Binney, a whistleblower, former National Security Agency official. He was one of the first to reveal the agency's massive domestic spying program. Mr. Binney revealed that NSA sought and received access to telecommunications companies' domestic and international billing records, that it has intercepted somewhere between 15 to 20 trillion communications. Mr. Binney also claims that in order to cover its warrantless surveillance, the agency concealed it under the patriotic-sounding name Terrorist Surveillance Program. Mr. Binney, thank you so much for coming. In light of the Petraeus/Allen scandal, while the public is so focused on the details of their family drama, one may argue that the real scandal in this whole story is the power, the reach of the surveillance state. I mean, if we take General Allen, thousands of his personal emails have been sifted through private correspondence. I mean, it's not like any of those men was planning an attack on America. Does this scandal prove the notion that there is no such thing as privacy in a surveillance state?
Well, yes, that's what I've been basically saying for quite some time, is that the FBI has access to the data collected, which is basically the emails of virtually everybody in the country, and the FBI has access to it. All the congressional members are on this surveillance too. It's not, no one's excluded. They're all included.
Their exaflop octobyte data houses can handle 10 times the US data yield a day before they had quantum computing, processing all images. With sexing ops for blackmail on innocent people. They do not even answer to their uninformed secret courts. They study porn habits. Have backdoors to encryption.
Performing rapid
They
searches
listen
of
to your phone
complicated
calls.
databases, or factoring large numbers very quickly. These examples may seem silly or irrelevant until you learn, for instance, that factorization is prohibitively time-consuming for a classical computer, which is why it forms one common approach to data encryption. Now quantum computers are looking pretty good, especially if you have an interest in national security.
Bust users on drugs, though the CIA smuggled them into the country.
Specific agency operations known as Amadeus, Pegasus, and Watchtower. I have Watchtower documents heavily redacted by the agency. I was personally exposed to CIA operations and recruited by CIA personnel who attempted to recruit me in the late 70s to become involved in protecting agency drug operations in this country.
They dismiss lawsuits without trial. And they've been around for longer than you think. Watching generations and revolutionaries. In the 50s, they were called no such agency, and in World War I they were called the Black Chamber. And coerced Western Union to access everyone's telegrams. They flew over spying with the Strategic Air Command.
Whether of enemies or sometimes even of allies, to find out what was happening overseas. Some other people disagreed with this and said that gentlemen shouldn't be reading each other's mails. Secretary Simpson coming up with that lovely quote. The Black Chamber had acted as this place where decoded diplomatic correspondence could be worked
Their
out.
website boasts of regulating social media and hackers, the last stand of journalism. They have total control over signal intelligence, and signals are not considered property, so may be intercepted legally. But they are just a cog in the wheel of Robert Cardillo's National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, currently fulfilling a trilateral commission agenda by painting a sinister picture of China's island building. They employ all data mining apps like Anthony Vincent's Findy, for data is more precious than oil. They are inside smart cities.
Space, launch, machine learning, machine vision, deep learning. These areas are all core to what NGA does.
All NSA intelligence is just a cog in the machine of the NGA. They have live-time facial recognition globally and oversight from people like Mattis. They correct satellite to ground view with Samuel Chambers Terrain Generation Service. Geospatial intelligence or joint can watch your whole life in moments and replay any scene of interest. They see in many wavelengths, so walls are meaningless and couple with a complete data profile. In fact, they use predictive programming to guess where you will go next, and if the program is wrong it learns. The National Geospatial Intelligence Agency was started by pathological liar James Clapper.
Any type of data at all on millions or hundreds of millions of Americans.
No, sir.
Who said he did not know he was funding Al-Qaeda. Clapper lied about defeating ISIS and election integrity.
No doubt whatsoever that the terrorist group named after a Sumerian alien goddess and 24/7 on mainstream media has always been a fabrication of the shadow government. But in case you're still not convinced, these pictures of the US Senator John McCain meeting a group of mercenaries in Syria in 2013 might change your mind. And that's because one of them bears an uncanny resemblance to Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, who is supposed to be the head of the terrorist group named after a Sumerian alien goddess. According to several sources on the internet, unverified documents released by the former CIA double agent Edward Snowden, and supposedly in possession of various outlets of the US mainstream media, reveal that Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is not only highly trained by Mossad and the CIA, but also that the whole ISIS operation is a joint of the US, Israeli and British intelligence, what would explain how American supplies and weapons allegedly destined to the Syrian and Turkish resistance ended up in the hands of ISIS militias. Now one thing is conspiracy theorists making speculations about such matters, but another entirely different animal is Edward Corrigan, a prominent human rights attorney in Ontario, Canada, corroborating that ISIS is indeed a fabrication of the joint Mossad, CIA and MI6.
Clapper wiretapped Trump Towers, spread lies about collusion and wants to get RT shut down. Which means it's not compromised media. The National Intelligence Program does not have to tell you where its $70 billion in taxes a year goes. They are uninformed mascot liaisons to Congress. The bullshit position was created in 2004 and has until recently been taken out of web searches. But the thugs are CIA and Mossad. Mossad staged the Paris attack.
The day after the attack in Paris, for example, almost everyone immediately began talking about how crazy people in the world are today, changing their profiles to French flags and immediately posting support and condolences. And the irony was that no one had a clue about what really happened or why the entire world was made to watch. In addition to that, most people are lazy, distracted by a capitalistic existence, don't know they are brainwashed, and most times don't know what they are doing or why. Your thoughts are not your own, and you're being led by the hand every step of the way. Most people openly and defiantly do not trust their governments. People know better. However, simultaneously, they overtly trust each and everything their government does, says, and presents anyway. Because most people trust corporate news narratives where they get most of their information and never question any of it. Most people are still completely unaware that governments orchestrate and or stage events all the time.
Mossad ships drugs with like the CIA. And the Snowden drops show that Mossad and the CIA created ISIS. Mossad tried to blow up the World Trade Center in 911 with blackmailed Hamas in 1993. They created anti-Semitic Facebook groups to create Israeli Facebook policy. Just like they create false Muslim extremist attacks in the Mideast. They also created Saddam the Terrible. Because he was speaking openly about the Trilateral Commission and wanting them to rig oil markets for Iraq as they did for themselves. The World Trade Center was a CIA office among other things. They are the most violent intelligence agency and protect high-ranking DNC corruption, which puts a target on Elizabeth and Jared Beck. The CIA was busted for blackmailing Congress in 2014, which is why they exported the job to Foreign Intelligence and Mossad Sanaim. The CIA has dropped diseases on the public. The CIA controlled the media from 1947 to 1973, taking the reins from the Council of Foreign Relations until it got passed on to the Trilateral Commission, which has been in charge since.
This was always done throughout history and is still maintained today. This is nothing new under the sun. You can't even explain this to sheeple, because you might become the one under attack or ridiculed for trying to tell people the real truth. Unfortunately, we have a world of people who don't understand how the world works. The media is not for information, it's for indoctrination. It's owned and operated by a very small group, and the objective of news media is compromised. It's not about informing you about what's going on in the world. The main function is to carry out agendas and control what you think, how you behave, and what you believe.
CIA created the concept of conspiracy theory in 1967 to systematically debunk scrutiny. Are you wearing your tinfoil hat yet? They've brainwashed mental patients to be assassins. Sold weapons to all our Mideastern enemies. They kill for companies like 200,000 Guatemalans for the United Fruit Company. They installed the Ayatollah to hold Americans hostage so they could take leverage 40% of Iran's oil profits. And in illicit programs like ISIS with cocaine and heroin shipped to the US. Through weapons and drugs, they fund themselves and take the lion's share of the intelligence funding, not for terrorism but for surveillance to watch your YouTube and chat rooms. Robert Gates as CIA and Secretary of Defense sold weapons to Osama bin Laden. Sold cluster bombs and biological weapons to Saddam Hussein. Cooked the books to sell weapons to Iran to buy drugs from the Contras. Gates created false documents of Russian threat. Called Snowden a traitor and demanded companies not provide the public encryption.
Snowden.
Traitor.
Writes insipid tell-all of who he likes and doesn't like and pushes corporate agenda through government as acting CEO of little companies like AT&T and Starbucks. And of course, he is chair of the Council on Foreign Relations, formerly called Society of the Elite, towards a war venture to capture Iranian oil. But there are so many puff pieces from Trilateral Commission media about this asshole. He actually runs Boy Scouts of America. And Robert Gates helped usher in James Mattis, whose hard-on for death includes blowing up weddings. Mad Dog Mattis also doesn't get evacs for his own dying soldiers. Mattis gave all command stations right to launch missiles on foreign countries without calling the White House. Mattis has shot down US drones with US planes in Iranian airspace to try and instigate war. And led war-maddened Marines on civilian to combatant kill ratios of 5-to-1. There is more in the paste link under the video covering all these issues. We encourage you to further dox corrupt government actors. We will not forgive. We will not forget. Expect us.